So here's further news in the downfall of Western civilization. Here's a headline. Public colleges push DEI in freshman orientation over free speech. Only 30% of schools surveyed mention free speech. And before we get into this, I just want to show you something else quickly. Allow me to introduce you to the Red Guards. So in case you hadn't heard of them, they were a mass student-led paramilitary social movement mobilized and guided by Chairman Mao Zedong in 1966 through 67 during the first phase of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The movement's aims were as follows. Chairman Mao has defined our future as an armed revolutionary youth organization. So if Chairman Mao is our Red Commander-in-Chief and we are his Red Guards, who can stop us? First, we will make China Maoist from inside out, and then we will help the working people of other countries make the world red, and then the whole universe. So if there's bacteria hiding under the ice at Europa, well, you've been warned. Now see if any of this sounds familiar to you. The Red Guards were directed to attack the four olds of Chinese society: old customs, old culture, old habits, and old ideas. For the rest of the year, Red Guards marched across China in a campaign to eradicate the four olds. Old books and arts were destroyed. Museums were ransacked, and streets were renamed with new revolutionary names. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Old books and art destroyed. Museums ransacked, kind of almost like pulling down statues. As streets were renamed with new revolutionary names. Attacks on culture quickly descended into attacks on people. Ignoring guidelines in the 16 articles which stipulated that persuasion rather than force were to be used to bring about the Cultural Revolution, officials in positions of authority and perceived bourgeois elements were denounced and suffered physical and psychological attacks. Oh, so they said one thing and then did something else. That also sounds familiar. On 22nd August 1966, a central directive was issued to stop police intervention in Red Guard activities. Those in the police force who defied this notice were labeled counter-revolutionaries. So the police who actually tried to just defend innocent people were called counter-revolutionaries. Mao's praise for rebellion effectively endorsed the actions of the Red Guards, which grew increasingly violent. Oh, so political approval of mass violence and destruction. That also sounds kind of familiar. Let's see, public security in China deteriorated rapidly as a result of central officials lifting restraints on violent behavior. The national police chief said it was no big deal if Red Guards were beating bad people to death. And of course, bad people were people that were seen to be counter-revolutionary. So that brings us back to this. Because the people who push DEI, or DIE, as I prefer to call it, they definitely know who the bad people are. But anyway, let's get into this. Out of 51 public universities, 91% of the freshman class orientation materials discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion, according to a report by Speech First, a free speech advocacy group. Well, let's go to that. So, Speech First. Freshman disorientation, how colleges and universities lay the groundwork for student indoctrination. It says freshman orientation programs at American universities receive a remarkable lack of critical attention. Our 2022 Freshman Disorientation Report offers an unprecedented window into the themes and material covered in the new student orientations of America's largest public universities. Our findings clearly suggest that these orientation programs overwhelmingly cover issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, while attention to the free speech rights of students on campus or the role of viewpoint diversity in campus academic health is strikingly absent. Our report found that only around 30% of schools surveyed mention free speech or viewpoint diversity, 30 and 33% respectively, in their orientation programs, while 91% stress DEI topics. And this, of course, applies to universities, colleges across the Western world, but this one is specifically for the US. Since 2019, the percentage of students saying free speech rights are secure has dropped 12%. This decline was even sharper for students of color who believe that their speech is even less protected. That's because they're an even greater threat to the far left diversity, inclusion, and equity agenda. And of course, the root of all of this is Marxism. I mean, they've got equity in there for a reason. But instead of class Marxism, it's identity Marxism. And they need solidarity from their identity groups that they use and whom they see as just simply nameless, faceless cogs in an identity machine, which they find extremely useful. And anybody within that who stands up and says, actually, I'm an individual, yeah, that's not good. You're setting a bad example. But anyway, furthermore, a 2021 joint study conducted by FIRE, College Pulse, and Real Clear Politics revealed that more than 80% of students in the U.S. self-censor their viewpoints at their college. 2/3 of students, 66%, deem it acceptable to shout down a speaker to prevent them from speaking on campus. And 1 in 4 deem it acceptable to use violence to stop a campus speech. Yes, there's a reason I showed you the red guards at the beginning of this video. All of these reports suggest a lack of free speech reinforcement from university officials, which has led to confusion among students' understanding of what is considered acceptable speech on campus. Well, yeah, you can't scare people into doing what you want or saying what you want them to say, unless you can bully them, right? Let's see, alarming examples. At Northern Kentucky University, an orientation video entitled Creating an Inclusive Community states, quote, "We have all participated in microaggressions. Where are you from is a microaggression." Really? Because it's such a microaggression that a sane, reasonable person might not even realize that it's an aggression at all. Because where are you from is not aggressive. It's curiosity. Where are you from? That's a normal question that normal people from any race and any background don't have a problem with. In fact, if you're at a new place and you don't have any friends or you don't know many people, you might appreciate that because it's an opportunity to make a connection. How about this? If you've not been to a drag show yet, we are going to make sure you have that opportunity. Why? Why is this important? I personally don't care about drag. I don't care about adults going and doing adult things with other adults. Don't care. And I don't understand the point of trying to make it the central focus of Western civilization. This doesn't make any sense to me. And I wonder, where's the feminists? What is drag? It's an exaggerated stereotype of female sexuality performed by men. I would think the feminists would have something to say about this. But anyway, how about State University of New York requires students to take an implicit bias test. Now, implicit bias tests have proven to be junk science. Here from the Spectator, we see an article, "The Dangers of Unconscious Bias Training. Employers know it doesn't work, so why do they insist on using it? Because they're afraid. They're afraid of going against the cult. And universities are the cult. So you know they're going to like it." Here at the University of Minnesota, an orientation script titled Piece of the Puzzle insists that microaggressions, quote, "whether intentional or unintentional, communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative prejudicial slights and insults towards any group." Think about how little sense this makes. First off, whether intentional or unintentional, they definitely communicate hostile, derogatory. This doesn't make any sense. Or it would only make sense if they see the groups that they're trying to protect as totally homogenous and completely without agency. Because they have no doubt, like asking, "Where are you from?" That is definitely hostile and derogatory. That's a negative, prejudicial slight and insult. I mean, it's hard to believe that this is how far universities have fallen. It's almost like the race Marxists don't want people communicating or empathizing with each other. You know what? It all works great if you just don't think. And what better place to send your kid to not think than a university? Sadly, apparently, it seems to be true. Anyway, please subscribe, like, and share. Sharing really helps me out. I thank you for sharing my content. I will see you next time.